house at the edge of town was a looming shadow against the blood-red sky, its paint peeling like scabs on a rotting corpse. For generations it had stood watch over the town, bearing silent witness to both their triumphs and tragedies. It had seen the best and worst of humanity, but for all its years it had never been anything other than a simple inn, or so everyone thought. There was a cemetery right beside the inn, so close that some of the headstones were actually within the building's footprint, and because it was so close to the dead, people said that when the wind blew through the willow trees, it carried the whispers of spirits from beyond the grave. Some even claimed that the inn itself was haunted, that those who stayed there after midnight never left. When they peered through the dusty windows, they could see the flickering shadows of spectres waltzing in the halls, hear the soft moans of ghosts lingering in the rooms. But these were just stories, or so most people believed, until one rainy evening when a young traveller named Lily stumbled upon the inn and decided to seek shelter within its crumbling walls. She was a spirited woman in her early 20s, her heart as untamed as the wind that whipped through her long tangled hair. She had set out on a journey to uncover forgotten histories, seeking to breathe life back into the stories that time had nearly erased. So when she heard the locals' tales about the haunted Hemlock Inn, she didn't run scared. She walked right up to the weathered wooden door and pushed it open. The bell above the door chimed, but no one answered. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of decay and dust. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, the lobby dusty, with cobwebs draping the corners like macabre decorations. The grand staircase spiralled upwards, each step groaning under the weight of countless footsteps from another era. As Lily ascended, a cold draught swept past, carrying with it the faint sound of footsteps echoing in the empty hall. They seemed to come from behind the closed doors at the end of the hallway. Curiosity piqued, she approached and pushed the door open. She found herself in a large room with a high ceiling. There was a heavy, ornate desk in the middle of the room, and two chairs facing each other. The only source of light came from a single window at the far end of the room, casting long shadows that danced on the wall. The air was stale and heavy, as though the room had not been used for many years. A shiver ran down her spine. The feeling of being watched intensified. She turned slowly to face the corner from which the sound had come, and saw nothing but darkness. But then she noticed something strange. The floorboards beneath her feet creaked and groaned, as if the building itself was settling, and as she listened, she could have sworn she heard a whisper carried on the wind. "Welcome," it said. "You belong here." Lily felt a sudden chill run down her spine, goosebumps erupting on her arms. She shook her head, attributing the sound to the wind, and turned to explore further. The hallway stretched before her, seemingly endless, its walls adorned with faded oil paintings that depicted scenes of a bygone era. Each step echoed in the oppressive silence, amplifying her unease. The air grew colder, and she could feel the weight of unseen eyes upon her back. As she continued deeper into the inn, she began to notice peculiar details. The wallpaper in the hallways was a sickly shade of green, covered in strange symbols that seemed to writhe and twist before her eyes. In the distance, she heard what sounded like hushed voices, but when she turned to investigate, she found only empty rooms. One room had an old leather suitcase sitting in the corner, and inside she found yellowed letters tied together with a faded ribbon. The handwriting was elegant, the words filled with longing and despair. They told a tale of a love lost and a soul trapped in eternal sorrow. Another room just behind her. The woman's face was pale and drawn, her eyes hollow sockets staring into nothingness. As Lily hurried away, she could feel the icy fingers of dread tightening their grip around her heart. She pressed on, desperate to escape the suffocating grip of the inn, but with each step, the darkness seemed to press closer, threatening to consume her whole. Then, as suddenly as it began, the whispering stopped. The only sound now was her own ragged breathing and the relentless pounding of her heart. In the distance, she heard the gentle strumming of a harp, and she followed the sound. It led her to a grand ballroom filled with flickering candlelight. Dozens of shadowy figures sat at tables scattered around the room. They were dressed in clothes that seemed to be from another time, their faces obscured by the dim lighting. Lily cautiously approached, and as she drew closer, she could make out the hollow sockets where their eyes should have been. They were staring at her, their gazes heavy with a chilling intensity. They began to turn their heads, their movements slow and deliberate. All eyes were on her now, and she felt their gazes pouring into her, stripping her bare. Panic surged through her veins, and she turned to flee. But as she did, the doors slammed shut with a deafening boom, plunging her into total darkness. She cried out, her voice echoing in the vast emptiness. Then she heard the scraping of chairs on the hardwood floor, and the murmur of voices growing steadily louder. Terror lent her speed, and she raced down the hallway, the whispers of the guests urging her on. But the floor beneath her feet seemed to writhe and coil like a living thing, sending her sprawling backwards towards the entrance. She struggled to regain her balance, her heart pounding against her ribs like a frantic bird. But the pull was too strong. She found herself tumbling through the air, landing hard on the ground outside. Blinking back tears and gasping for breath, she looked up to see the inn looming above her, its windows like vacant eyes staring down. She scrambled to her feet and ran, stumbling blindly through the darkness. The rain soaked her clothes, chilling her to the bone, but she didn't care. She could hear the voices now, their whispers turning into screams, their murmurs into chants. "Join us," they urged. "Stay forever." Through the blurry veil of the storm, she saw the headstones in the cemetery, and they seemed to be moving, as if reaching out toward her. With a final surge of adrenaline, she broke through the trees and stumbled onto the road, collapsing onto the muddy ground, far from the inn, far from the grasping hands of the cemetery. When the sun rose the next morning, the Hemlock Inn appeared abandoned once more. Its windows were dark and lifeless, its doors bolted tight. The only sign of Lily's presence was her wet footprints in the lobby, leading to a door that now led directly into the cemetery. The townspeople who passed by that day spoke in hushed tones of a girl who had sought shelter in the inn, but no one knew what happened to her, nor did they want to find out. Some claimed that they saw her ghost wandering the halls, forever trapped in the inn's ghostly embrace. Others said that on stormy nights you can see a faint light moving between the tombstones and the hotel, and hear a soft voice calling, "Don't leave." And so, the legend of the Hemlock Inn and the girl who vanished lived on, a chilling tale whispered around flickering candles, a warning to those who might consider seeking shelter within its cursed walls. And Lily, well, some said she was still out there somewhere, forever bound to the inn and its spectral guests, forever seeking a way to break free from the curse that condemned her to wander the halls of the Hemlock Inn for eternity.